How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Reptile-verse. My name is Grant Young, you're watching the Reptile-verse, and in today's video, I'm bringing you yet another head-to-head video. In the last week's head-to-head, we had the Burmese python, which is what I'm holding right here, versus the common boa, and in this week's video, we're going to be pitting the Macklots python versus the carpet python. Now, before this video really begins, I want to give a huge shout out, huge thank you to Annalise at All Canadian Reptile Girl. She provided the majority, if not all of the actual footage you'll be seeing through this video of her carpet python and her Macklots python Hobbs. So, go follow the link, show her some love, and thank you, Annalise, for letting me use that footage. Alrighty, so if you remember last week, we break this series down into 5 categories, which are handleability, housing, feeding, diversity, and the wow factor. So, kicking it right off with handleability. Now, both these species of snakes, the carpet python and the Macklots python, both have a little bit of a reputation for being snappy. They have a reputation for not liking to be handled, being very ready and willing to bite, but of course, that's not necessarily true. I have seen a few Macklots pythons in person, and I've watched quite a bit of Hobbs on All Canadian Reptile Girl's channel. They're really not as bitey as people say they are. Now, they definitely can have their personalities, as all snakes will have their own individual personalities, but typically, they are not as aggressive or defensive as people make them out to be. Whereas, I will say, carpet pythons, while they are not as defensive as most people say they are, all the carpet pythons I've worked with have been a little bit touchy and would strike if you made any sudden movements or if you pulled out a camera. Alright, Sirius isn't shit and he really didn't want to be handled, so I put him back for the remainder of this video. But getting back into what I was saying, so carpet pythons, unlike Macklots pythons, I have definitely noticed a little bit more attitude in those snakes than in the Macklots python. Neither of these snakes get quite large enough to really be dangerous. Macklots pythons typically get 6 to 8-ish feet, which would be the same thing for carpet pythons, unless you get, say, like a coastal carpet python, which can get 10 feet long, or an area Jawa carpet python, which stays smaller, like under the 5-foot range. So it depends, but either way, neither of these snakes are something that I would say you necessarily need a second pair of hands to handle. Not something that I would say is going to cause risks to your health. But it is definitely worth noting that in my personal experience, carpet pythons tend to be a little bit more nippy than Macklots pythons. And of course, if you have either of these snakes, leave in the comments below, tell me what you think of them. I personally love both of these snakes. Probably going to see a Macklots python in my collection in the near future. I don't know yet. But all of this goes just off of my personal experience with each animal. So, for category 1, which is temperament, we're going to give the win to the Macklots python. Alright, so when it comes to housing, which is category number 2, problem with this category with this one is both of these snakes typically get to about the same size and will need about the same size enclosure. At least a 4x2x4, but when they get larger, like say 6 to 8 feet, probably I would personally recommend something that's 6 to 8 feet long and 4 feet tall, maybe a little bit more, because both of these snakes do tend to like to climb a lot. They are both considered to be at least somewhat semi-arboreal. Again, with carpet pythons, it kind of depends on the locality, depending on how much they will actually climb. But both of these snakes need about the same size enclosure, so this category is actually going to come down to a draw. So, I'm going to go a little bit more into housing, of course, though. So, Macklots pythons, I love seeing Macklots pythons, like, up in people's enclosures, up high. It's incredible to see them move around, and they typically seem to be a little bit more active in their enclosures than carpet pythons are, but I've definitely, my carpet python that I had, she was definitely exploring her enclosure quite a bit. Not as often as some other snakes that I've seen, but she definitely explored it more than, say, a ball python or more than Sirius, my Burmese python, would. So again, category 2 is going to end in a draw. So that leaves our categories with the Macklots python leading the carpet python 2-1. Alright, so as for the feeding category, this one is going to be really close, if not a draw as well. So both of these snakes, again, getting about the same size, will typically need about the same kind of prey. I do, again, this is in my personal experience talking to people who keep these animals, I have heard that things like Macklots pythons, typically good rodent eaters. They're fantastic at feeding frozen thawed rodents or live rodents. You really shouldn't be feeding live, by the way. Feed frozen thawed if you can. But I haven't really heard of there being really much of an issue with feeding Macklots pythons. If you've had hunger strikes for your Macklots pythons, let me know. But it definitely seems to be a little bit more uncommon than the next snake that we're talking about in this video. So, carpet pythons, I have also experienced this myself, can be a little bit finicky. I could only get my carpet python, I had a jungle carpet python for a while, I could only get her to eat quail. Yeah, which thankfully isn't too terribly difficult. If you just order frozen thawed quail from Rodent Pro, and it gets shipped right to your door. But I don't really like feeding animals quail. I prefer feeding rodents just because it simplifies everything. I will occasionally feed other things just to vary up the diet a little bit, but I don't want to have to only feed quail. I would prefer to be able to feed rodents a little bit more often, but I could almost never get her to eat rodents. Maybe like once out of every 4 or 5 feedings she would be okay with rodents, but typically she wanted quail, which can be a little bit harder to do, especially depending on where you live. So, because of the feeding and because Macklots pythons do so well on just rodents, and I haven't heard as much about feeding strikes with Macklots pythons, they are going to come away with another victory in this video. So, Macklots pythons are leading the carpet pythons 2-1. 3-1. Alright, so on to diversity. Now, Macklots pythons, I don't actually really know of any morphs. I haven't seen any morphs of Macklots pythons out there before. So, yeah. They're all pretty much look very similar to one another. The only variability I see is, say, the babies do typically have more spots than the adults. But some adults can still retain their spots when they're full grown. It's just not super common. It's more common for them to lose that baby patterning as they become adults. Whereas carpet pythons have not only several different morphs, I know that they have albino. I am actually not 100% sure about other morphs, not super versed in carpet pythons, but they have a lot of localities. Now, one thing I'll say about the localities, they have a lot of them, of course. They have the jungle carpet python, the coastal, the Iriajawa, the Darwin's carpet python, and a few more that I'm forgetting about, I'm sure. The problem that I see with these localities is I've been seeing a lot of mixing in carpet python locales. The problem with that is then you don't really know what you're getting. Is it more jungle or is it more coastal? Because that seems to be the one that I see mixed the most, is coastal carpet pythons being mixed with jungle carpet pythons. But it definitely does happen with the other subspecies as well. So it's a little bit difficult to know 100% what you're getting. But they definitely have a lot of localities, and each one has its own pros and cons, so definitely go do your own research when getting a carpet python so that you know exactly what you're looking for. So, because of the locality thing, and also, I know for sure they have albinos. I'm not sure if there are albino Macklots pythons. If there are, I will correct myself right here. But because of these factors, the carpet python is going to win this category, bringing the scores for this video to 3-2 in favor of Macklots pythons. But there is still one more category. So we'll see. Will the carpet python draw with the Macklots python, or will the Macklots python be shown as the real victor here? Category 5 is the wow factor. Now, the wow factor is everything that I left out here. When we're looking at the wow factor, starting off with Macklots pythons, it's already incredible to see a giant snake. Again, so wow factor talking about like if I brought it to a program with myself, what kind of reaction would I get? So Macklots pythons being still beautiful animals, some people think that they look ugly because they're coloring. I think they're gorgeous. But I do not think that they're quite as pretty as, say, carpet pythons. Now, I would not bring a carpet python to a program, by the way. I would bring a Macklots, not a carpet. But if I was bringing a carpet to a program and I pulled out a carpet in front of a lot of kids, the bright yellow and black banding of a carpet python is stunning. Especially since these two animals get about the same size depending on locality. Again, if I was doing, say, a jungle carpet python for this one. Jungle carpet pythons are very, very high yellow, and they look fantastic. I love carpet pythons. I love their patterning. Just right now I'm focusing on breeding and educational shows, so you're not going to see one in my collection for a long time, most likely. But that's not a huge deal. Still looking at the wow factor of these animals, I can't in good conscience give it to the Macklots python. I prefer the Macklots python between these two animals, I'll say it right now, but I do have to give the victory for wow factor to the carpet python, because obviously I do. So, this is actually surprising to me. I didn't think it was going to come out this way when I was initially planning this video, but we have the first tie of the series. We are left at 3-3, Macklots pythons versus carpet pythons. Both of these animals are absolutely fantastic. So, definitely go check them out. If you're interested in buying one, do a ton of research. This video is definitely not enough research to own one or to care for one properly. So definitely, if you want one, go do your own research. And I think that's about it. Leave in the comments below, tell me what head-to-heads you would like to see next. I know one person wanted Burmese versus reticulated python, so we can make that happen for sure. And I know another person wanted tegus versus bearded dragons, so that's another one we'll definitely have coming. But other than that, if you go down into the description below, you'll find a link to my Discord server, a link to my Patreon, and a link to go support US Ark, so follow those links. There will also be a link in the description to Annalise at All Canadian Reptile Girls channel. Go show her some love. Again, all this footage would not be in this video without her help. So, huge thank you again, Annalise, and hope to work with you again in the future. Now, if you're wondering why this video is coming out on a Wednesday and not a Tuesday or a Thursday, I made a community post earlier in the week explaining that I can't really keep doing that. Unfortunately, just everything going on in my life right now, I can only guarantee one video a week. So the new upload schedule is every Wednesday. I'm going to have a full-length video that I really edit well and I'm really proud of. And if I do an extra video, like there actually will be an extra video this week. It'll either come out on Friday or Saturday, hopefully Friday. I have an unboxing video to do this week, so that's what we're doing. Alright, if you enjoyed this video in any capacity whatsoever, click the like button if you haven't done so already. Highly consider subscribing to the Reptile-verse. New videos at least once a week, and I will be sure to see you guys on Friday. Peace out, YouTube.